did 2 whole cars. It was me, Dez, and me 3, right? And on the first car in small letters it said, "All you see is," and then, you know, big, you know, block silver letters it said, "Crime in the city," right?
At the Grand Concourse 149th Street station in the Bronx, graffiti writers gather at what they call the writer's bench.
What's good, what's good, what's good? Live from the writer's bench. I'm your man Kill with 2 of my soldiers, Ev and Vic. What's good, y'all?
Yes.
Shout out to the boy Beezo. He ain't rocking with us tonight, but everything is good. You know, shout him out. He'll be around for the next show. Tonight's show, we're talking about, I guess we could call it the definition of a producer or a musician in 2014. This conversation got started because me and Ev was chopping it up early on in the week. And I said something, you know, y'all know Ev, he want controversy. So I said something that was a little controversial. I said, even being a hip hop producer, I don't feel like hip hop producers are musicians. And the reason why I said that is because, number one, my mom's is a jazz musician. She's been teaching music in the city of Philadelphia for over 30 years. I grew up around rehearsals every day, musicians in and out of my house. The average dude hasn't done that. The average dude who loves music, listen to records, but has probably maybe never even seen a rehearsal, has never even seen a musician actually sit down and compose something from scratch. And I feel like for us producers, without these things behind me, a lot of dudes are very limited. And when cats stopped sampling, we was getting a Swiss beat, computer beats that nobody even liked like that. Well, I mean, folk liked them, but us most diehard heads didn't like it because it didn't have that sound to it. So that's kind of what started this discussion. We wanted to bring that discussion to the bench. So, Ev, how do you feel about me saying producers who sample aren't musicians?
I basically combat that opinion. I've heard that a lot of times, and the reason why I combat it is because if you look at the day and times, technology is a thing and it's real and it's happening. And I think technology, you know, you look at the instrumentation of then, you had your trumpets, you had your guitars, you had your pianos and stuff like that. The instruments have changed and have evolved. When you first got your first digital machines, you wasn't getting the same type of real sound that you can get now. Even there is actual real software where you can get that type of sound now. So my thing is that, to me, an MPC, you can look at an MPC as an instrument, because for the simple fact is you have to sit and spend time with that. I mean, to me, to say it's not an instrument is to discredit a lot of cats that I know that can master MPC. I've seen cats play MPC live. And so for me, the fact that they do these things, the fact that they put this work and this time in, I'm not going to say they're not musicians because they're not on a trumpet or they're not on a piano or they're not on an upright bass. I'm just not going to do that. I think instruments change, and because of that, the definition of musician should change. Now, I'm sure there's thousands of people that be like, that's, you know, what you're talking is blasphemous, but that's my opinion. I feel like we have to, you know, the times change. I mean, there was a point in time when I think it was the sax, if I'm not mistaken. The sax wasn't even really the instrument back in the day. The sax came later. So, you know, my thing is like, yo, it evolved. These instruments, the sax evolved. The French horns came about at some point in time. These instruments didn't always just exist. And because the material changes and the way that we connect to sound changes, doesn't mean that, you know, these cats aren't musicians because they're on this new type of instrument or new type of machine. So that's my 2 minutes of it.
What you say, Vic?
It's a good question, man. But I'm sitting here as a non-producer, like, you know, when you call it an instrument, the MPC, like, weren't y'all was sampling multi-instruments, right? To make it sound like it sounded. It wasn't like it was just, I'm gonna just sample the bass or I'm gonna just sample a trumpet. Was it, you know, that's my question to it. you know, are we? Is it anti-sampling, or just, you know, this cat can't play no guitar? You know?
Nah, it's not anti-sampling, and let me ask Eva. Well, let me answer your question first, Vic. I'm not anti-sampling because I mean it's what I do, but I think at the same token I've always understood it, and like I said, because my mother's a jazz musician, and when I mean all of her friends are jazz musicians, I'm probably the only person, the only kid out of all her friends who doesn't play an instrument. The majority, all of my mom's friends' children are like Juilliard, like accomplished jazz musicians, playing for Sun Ra, playing for different people. I'm the only kid of her crew who doesn't play anything. So I understand when older heads and jazz musicians and I guess what I'm saying, real musicians in my eyes say, you know, why they don't have any respect for hip hop. Because at the end of the day, I saw this producer documentary. I forgot the name of it. It was Deep Crates or whatever. And 88 Keys was saying something like he doesn't like to just loop. And then Just Blaze was telling him like, yo, sometimes you just gotta let a loop live. And the funny thing about that is because, like I said, like before I even answer it, let me do this first. Vic, just off your top of your head, what are two of your favorite hip hop songs? Just it don't even gotta be no order, don't gotta be your first one. Just which two of your favorite hip hop joints?
Shook Ones and what's the joint? The Slum Village joint, man. Players.
What about you, Ev?
Fall in Love, Slum Village joint, and I would say Shut 'Em Down.
Shut 'Em Down. Mine would probably just off the top of my head maybe Come Clean and They Reminisce. And you know what all six of them joints got in common? Maybe for the exception of Shook Ones, they all loops. They're all loops. So to me, the biggest thing about a producer is like when cats say like you gotta let a loop live, I'm like 90% of the hip hop that we listen to and we love are loops. Back at 88.9 when I used to do Milk Crates, I would get the record, put it on, and then everybody would go, oh, that's where Pete got it from. Primo and Dilla are probably the only two producers that you gotta like usually instruct people to what they did, because when you put the record on, they may only sample the second of it. So you gotta rewind it and all that. But the bulk of hip hop, Come Clean, Master Pill, the bulk of Primo's catalogs is loops.
You could say that about a cat playing a guitar then too, because most rock and roll is only two chords.
Of course.
You're not getting into no Jimmy Page or no Jaco Pastorius type where these guys is just going through all this structure and timing and notes and putting together. Most of your cats, you could pick them, because that's why they went to tabs. You would just play the joint, man. It wasn't like they did anything like amazing with the guitar.
Well, you know what? Let me say this because I don't want anything that I'm saying to come off as trying to discredit anybody. Let me just first say that. I'm not trying to discredit any of the producers I just named, none of them. Like I said, I'm talking about myself here. So it's not like I'm talking about other people and not referring back to myself. It's just, at the end of the day, it's like what we talked about before, and we touched on it on an old show. Why didn't we like what Puffy was doing in the 90s? Because he was just looping. But was the problem really that Puffy was just looping? Because so was Pete Rock, so was Premier. They were just looping. The problem we had with Puff was...
I disagree.
Hold tight. The problem most people had with Puff, if we really want to get down to it, was that he was looping songs that we knew. That's what the problem was. And that's why a lot of older people had a problem with hip hop, because Primo was looping songs that they knew. We didn't have no problem when the Trackmasters did I Shot Ya for LL Cool J, Prodigy, Keith Murray, and Foxy Brown. No, everybody was like, oh, the Trackmasters, they came with that. It was just a loop. It just was a loop. We didn't know. So at the end of the day, why were we so up? That's why we were upset with Puffy, because we knew the songs. Do you think if you already heard the Vic Juris a sample that Primo used for Come Clean, you would have been like, oh snap, when you heard Come Clean? Nah, you would have been like,
no, I think that's we're changing conversations. But if I was to address that for a minute, I'll address it for a second, because it wasn't just the fact that Puffy was doing songs that we knew. He was doing pop songs. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, you know, it was still songs that we knew that cats was sampling later. Like, for instance, when Portishead sampled, when Helter Skelter, I guess it was the Beatminers, sampled the Portishead joint for Helter Skelter's album, we loved that shit. And the song had just came out. That song might have been out for about 2 years at the most.
But keep in mind, Ev, I don't know who the hell Portishead is. I mean, I've heard of them, but I didn't know that.
So if we look at that, then okay, so you don't know who Portishead is. But if I get back to the conversation as far as the musicianship of things, I'm gonna bring this in. We got this machine right here. I'm bringing this in because I want to talk about the evolution of things. This is, I don't even know if y'all can actually see it. Where's the joint at? This is a Kai MPK 25. There's nothing in this machine. It's a MIDI machine. Now, most MPCs are MIDI machines. You can plug it up to your computer, you can MIDI it out, and the thing is, the software, and it's not just about sampling. Because the software nowadays, I can go and I can plug up and I can pull down my Trillion, which is a bass modular, and I can just have a bunch of different bass notes come. So if I got a bunch of different bass notes come, and the bass player has a bunch of different bass notes on his bass guitar, and I'm playing my shit through this, what makes me less of a musician than him? It's just, we're just on two different types of instruments.
It's just my definition. It's kind of like this. I know people who say, I can swim, but not in deep water. Nigga, you can't swim. So everybody's gonna have a different definition of what a word is or what a person can do. I know people who say, I could drive, but not on the interstate.
But how does that?
You can't drive. See, so we have different definitions of different things. To me, being a musician, it's almost like somebody who goes to school to be, because I know for my mother, like I said, she's taught people. I know people who have spent countless thousands and thousands of hours to practice, to get their craft. All these records you see behind me, I feel like people, and I know musicians who feel discredited when it's like, I know how to do this. I know how to read music. I know how to play music. I know how to do all of these things. And for somebody who can't do any of those things to say they're the same as me, it's almost like somebody who goes to school to be an engineer. You're a civil engineer. You spend all this money, all this time training, and then somebody else who, I don't know of a good analogy off the top of my head to just, but now somebody else is coming up like, nah, I'm an engineer too because I know how to work this computer and this is the new technology. Okay. All I'm saying is that person would feel some kind of way about it. All I'm saying is I understand why you feel some kind of way about it.
Very honest, they need to get over themselves because it's called technology for a reason. Things has changed. That's like saying you got a dancer who's a modern, my lady, she's a modern dancer, right? Now, back in the day, it was only ballet. All you had was motherfuckers doing the ballet shit, and that was about it. So you bring a modern dancer into this equation now. Now they're not really a dancer because they're not on their toes the whole time. They ain't got it. They don't have to. Their lines are not the same type of lines. No, they're still dancers. It's art is meant to evolve. That's like saying a painter or a sculptor. If you go back in the day, we take a Michelangelo sculptor, statue or some shit, and we bring somebody else to the equivalent who's doing some type of sculpting out of hangers. Is he not a sculptor now because he's not working?
But to me, that's a bad example because listen to what I'm saying. For my definition of a musician is, I'll give you a great example because I remember back in the 80s, because my whole family is musicians. So my uncle was a bass player. I remember I forgot what drum machine it was. I used to have it. Back in maybe like 83, he got this drum machine. And when drum machines first came out, and you can hear it in the bulk of the 80s music, most people were using drum machines. And drummers were salty. Drummers was like, yo, y'all ain't calling me to rehearse no more. Y'all not calling me to perform because y'all got these drum machines. So they felt some kind of way about it. At the end of the day, though, for me personally, I like a lot, and I guess it depends with my music. With R&B, I prefer a live drum. That's just what I prefer. I mean, I understand what you're saying. We just have two different definitions of musicians, because at the end of the day, I'm going to go back to say this. You, the average hip hop producer, to get that sound, and we were talking about this a little bit before, Dre, to this day, if he needs to do something, because this technology has been around forever, and if by the time we're getting it, trust me, Dre, Timbaland, Pharrell, all them dudes done had it for years. Dre still calls musicians to come into the studio and play with him. Why? If technology is the way that you're explaining it to be right now, why would Dr. Dre need you?
Wait. How can you, have you talked to Dre in the last month? How can you
what I'm saying is this, Ed. What I'm saying is this. I'll look at Game CD that came out 4 years ago. Now, I'm just going to assume that this technology has been better than in the past 4 years. Unless you're telling me something has come down since Game's album. What happened?
4 years, you're saying?
No. What I'm saying is you're saying that prior to anything that I read Dr. Dre credit listed on, there are going to be a list of musicians. So, no, I haven't talked to Dre. I've just read the credits to see that this dude is paying musicians to do it.
Okay, now check me.
Isn't some of that from the fact that they don't want to pay for samples anymore, and you got to get them cats to play the shit slightly different than on the record?
That may be it, but Vic, that's a great point. But what I'm saying is, I see what I mean. Listen to what I'm saying. A peep game. Even if that is the case, Vic, Dre still needs a what? A musician.
That is, I'm listening now. Check me out. You saying 4 years ago when Game's album came out, that Dre had called musicians come in there to play on that track. I'm saying in the last 4 years, the software has advanced so much. It sounds real. It sounds almost better.
So you're saying Dre don't need no musician. So I'm not going to read nobody's album credit that they produced by.
You take it to an extreme measure. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that you can't discredit these cats because, for the simple fact is, and let's set it plain. So now peep me out. I play guitar, right? Okay. I got a guitar, acoustic joint. I string it up. I play it. I've composed. I've made written compositions with this guitar. Okay. The amount of time that I put in that guitar is no less than the amount of time that I put into my MPC when I had an MPC. So it's not like it's a different thing. It's not like, oh, it's a different.
Here's the difference. You can do that. Peep game.
You don't know that Drake can.
I don't know that Drake. Then why is he paying a guitar player?
That's 4 years ago. We talking about Game's album that came out 4 years ago.
What I'm talking about is
to add to that. But look, to add to that, you're talking about a guitar player. What if, like you said, Dre took piano lessons. So of course, on guitar, you have any musician. You can have the best bass player in the world. If he needs a drummer, he gonna call a drummer. He's not gonna go just jump on the drums because he's a musician. So I mean, what difference is him as opposed to Dre?
What I'm saying is this,
piano, right?
And this is going to be my definition, and we just have two different definitions. For a musician to be a musician, for me, you have to know how to play music. That's my definition. You disagree?
Play music off of what? Let me ask this: like, is the conversation? Is it artists? Is it producers out there calling themselves musicians? Is that what?
No. I mean, I was just saying, I don't think that I've never seen a producer like say, hey, everybody, I'm a musician. So really
why would they when it's sample-based music? That's what it was always. It's like with the graffiti thing. Let me use for my analogy. A lot of artists were on us because you didn't take no class, you're not using no brush. It ain't nothing traditional about it. But it doesn't mean that it's not art. You know what I mean? We just use spray cans and markers for the shit. I think with hip hop, like, it was always known. I mean, you always hear the stories, we couldn't afford no instruments, blase blind, and one night, they sprinkled some dust and Marley Marl got on the MP and, oh shit, I can sample shit and rearrange it the way I want to. And I think that's just what it is. I think too many musicians have gotten involved in, you're not playing that. Well, no shit. I'm digging records and I'm using this piece of equipment that I could put it in and rearrange it the way I want. But that's like what it is, though. It's
and I think that's what it is, Vic.
I got a question for you. Is Pharrell a musician?
All right, let me hold that. Let me just say what I was going to say to Vic real quick. Vic, for me, and again, and I say this again and again because I don't want anybody watching this to ever get it twisted. And I've been married 14 years, so I know I got to repeat stuff for folks. I'm not discrediting any hip hop producer. I just want to keep putting that out there. Right. What we do is amazing shit. I'm not, and that's what I want to get. I just want to make sure that people are hearing that part. That right. What Premier, Pete Rock, the Bomb Squad, all the people who I look up to, who I bow down to, have done amazing shit. I'm just saying they're not musicians. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying they're not a word. And Vic, you made a good point. I can't remember a producer ever trying to come out and say, hey, I'm a musician and I'm going to fight tooth and nail for that title. Right. So, like I said, my argument could be null and void just based off of what you said, Vic, because I've never heard Pete Rock get out in an interview and say, hey, I'm a musician and anybody who got beef with it can come to the Vernon and see me. Nobody has ever said that. That was just my opinion. Okay. So, again, I just want to say again, I'm not discrediting anything because you're absolutely right, Vic. Digging in itself is an art. It is an art form. And I would never discredit that because niggas can look behind me and see I'm a digger. I'm doing all this stuff. So I'm not saying that what I do is bullshit or what I do is worthless or just looping a record. Nah, I'm just saying that they're not a musician. Okay. I'm still get to you, Ev, but I wanted to tackle something that you had said earlier. It's almost like with now more than ever, because of the internet and YouTube, I can take better care of my house now than my mother could 30 years ago because I can go to YouTube and type in, how do I fix this pipe? You know, I can go to YouTube and figure out how can I lay this sheetrock. Would I call myself, I don't know, what do people, what are those?
Equivalent. That's equivalent, brother. That's a bad example right there.
Why you say that?
Because you're talking about going on Google to basically establish one task. I got one task I got to do.
Learn how to do something. I'm going to Google.
You're talking about fixing something in your house. Once it's done, it's done. We're talking about consistently doing things. But that's something different. I'm still throw my question on the table. Is Pharrell a musician?
Is Pharrell a musician? I would say yes, because I've seen footage of Pharrell sitting down in the keyboard, starting off playing chords, playing notes. I've seen him construct a whole song without even having to look for a record, for having to say, hey, so-and-so, you come over here and play this. I have seen him do it from scratch.
All right, so that brings to my next question. Pharrell does an EP. He does a 5-song EP with just one of these, because we know you know how to work one of these.
Right.
There's no piano, it's no drum set, it's no bass in the shit. There's nothing but off of that machine. Is he still a musician?
You said if he does an EP.
No, I'm saying, yeah, if he does an EP with just one of these MIDI keyboard machine, MIDI drum machines, right? He does a whole EP, all the music, everything, right? I ain't talking about sampling. But there's no, he didn't play no piano, he didn't play no drums, he didn't
we'll break this down to me, because I don't know how you're going to do that if you just use that. Because there's no sounds in it.
That's what I've been trying to tell you, brother. There is software out there nowadays that is just, it's like, again, I keep using Trillion as my example. Trillion is a bass module sampler, so it's nothing but a bunch of different basses in there. Bass notes. Now, you can play these bass notes off of anything, and they got the same thing for guitars, they got the same thing for keys, the whole nine. Whereas, I don't need a machine, I don't need a keyboard to get it out. I don't need a guitar to get it out.
So what do you play it through?
One of these.
You're using the pad, but that's what I'm asking. So you're using the pad.
I'm using the pad
to play the bass.
Exactly.
And you're going to use the pad. How do you use the pads to play the chords?
You got more than one pad. You got 2, you got 3. A chord structure is only 3 notes.
All right, that's all I'm asking. I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
No, wait, hold up, Vic, hold up. So if Pharrell does that, is he a musician?
I mean, I guess so.
But according to your definition, he's not.
Why? Because Ev, listen to the moral. Let's get to the moral. The moral of the story is Pharrell's a musician because the nigga can play the piano. Period. That is why he's a musician.
Okay,
it doesn't matter what it doesn't matter. Let's ask this question.
Okay,
can RZA play the piano? You know me, Ev. I'm all about facts. Can RZA play the piano? Yes or no?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay, let's just say he can. He's not a musician in my eyes. Can Pharrell play the piano? Yes. That's the only thing that's making him a musician. It's not about what he uses. It's not about if he uses
it is about what he uses. You just said it's the piano.
No, but Ev, the moral of the story is he is a musician because he knows how to play the piano. Period.
So it is about what he uses. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's about what he uses.
If I can get a chord off of this, you can get a chord off a piano, but this is not the equivalent of being a musician because it's not a piano.
Ev, can you play a saxophone? Can you play a trumpet?
Now I gotta play saxophone?
Huh?
Hey, look.
No. I'm just saying. I'm naming these things. I'm naming instruments, and that's the thing. This is just one of those things where it's one of those like non-budging things for me. Like that's my definition. It's kind of like the same thing. Guess what? Nowadays, and let me put this out there too, this is no disrespect to anybody in their lifestyle. This is just Kill's humble opinion. Now everybody wants to say, hey, same-sex marriage is cool, right? I disagree with that. And guess what? There is nothing that nobody on this bench, that nobody on this planet can get to change my opinion on that. Somebody's going to say, oh, Kill, stop being an old fogey Christian. Let these gays marry and do whatever they want to do. Guess what? I'm not gonna budge. So that'd be a wasted conversation. That's like talking politics with me. I'm not going to budge.
Okay. Then I'm gonna.
Hey, can I put some definitions in here real quick?
Okay, but before you do that, Vic, I just want to comment on that last thing he said. Then I will shut up. I swear. All right. So off of that last statement that you just made, Kill,
about marriage.
I know about this is what it is. I ain't budging. When we have conversations. You are the one that says, you know what? I love having these guys because sometimes when I go to barbershop, I can't have a conversation with these cats because they just stuck on their one thing and they ain't trying to hear nothing else. So Is that where we at? Is that where we at? You just, that's it? And that's it?
No. What I'm saying is that's where I'm at with this definition of musician. Again, it's just a play on words. It literally is just what my definition of musician is versus yours. Like I said, what we do, and again, I'm always talking about myself too. So I'm actually discrediting myself. Right, and people have said that, like, yo, you're discrediting what you do, and I'm like, I know.
Yeah, but
for me, I don't know what I am. I don't know
your definition with this.
I want to throw some definitions out there. I think if I put these definitions out there, we can get back on track with the tone of the argument. So
where the definition is coming from?
I looked up musical instrument.
Okay.
A musical instrument is a device created or adapted to make musical sounds. In principle, any object that produces sound can be a musical instrument. It is through purpose that the object becomes a musical instrument. And then I had to look up musician.
Okay.
One who composes, conducts, or performs music, especially instrumental music. So I think what them definitions say, and I'm not laughing at either one of y'all, it's just, I think now that we understand what we're talking about, because I really didn't, and people out there, I had to put that in there for, us laymen to get on track.
I appreciate that, Vic. Let me ask this question, because I've heard this said before. Let me just ask y'all opinion on this. I've heard people say that Puffy and Dre are the equivalent to what Quincy Jones did for Thriller. Quincy Jones.
I don't know how Puffy goes in that equation, because as far as I know, I don't think Puffy even knows how to work a drum machine, but I could be wrong.
No, and I'm with you on that. He probably doesn't. But because people would say, well, Puff brings in the producers to get that sound that he wants. He orchestrates it. And it was like people would say that's the same thing Quincy Jones did. Like, Quincy Jones didn't play trumpet on Thriller. He didn't play bass. He brought those people in. But my argument was always like this. I don't know if cats saw Mo Better Blues, and there's a scene where they come in to rehearse and Bleak is like, here's your part. I wrote that. Here's your part, bass player. You play what I wrote. Here's your part, Mr. Piano Player. You play what I wrote. Puffy and Dre aren't doing that. Puffy and Dre aren't saying, here is what I want you to play. Most of these producers are like, yo, here's the beat. yo, you just come up with a dope bass line you think could fit in with that. To me,
that's assumptions. How do you know? I mean, I ain't speaking for Puffy, but how do you know Dre is not telling these cats what he wants them to play?
You're right.
I understand it.
The only thing that I could go off of is, and again, this goes back to, I guess, hip hop folklore. I've read interviews with Mike Elizondo, who is Dre's bass player for years. I've heard interviews with Scott Storch, who used to be Dre's keyboard player for years, who is saying, yo, I did the whole thing, Dre ain't do shit. So that's the only thing I'm going off of. But keep in mind, those niggas could be lying too, because according to most producers, Dre has never produced nothing. Daz is like, no nigga, I produced The Chronic and Doggy Style. My defense in that has always been kind of how we thought Ali did all the beats for Tribe. Then you hear what Ali does outside of Tribe, and you're like, nah, you didn't. I'm like, Daz, if you did The Chronic and Doggy Style, dog, why am I not still not into your beats when you do stuff on your own? So you're right. I don't know.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not defending Dre in any way, because I'm not the biggest Dre fan. Because
but I understand what you're saying. Like, nobody was there. So I'm just saying the only reason why I'm going off of that is because his session musicians have come out against him. Like, like Scott Storch was like, yo, I did Still Dre for Chronic 2001. Dre wasn't even in the studio. I did it from the door. So that would lead me to believe that Dre isn't saying, here, this is the bass line I got in my head, you play. You know what I mean? And again, I've been in sessions with producers, and they're telling the bass player that, like, here's the beat, come up with something dope to it. Is every producer doing that? Nah, I'm just saying from the stories I've heard and sessions I've been in, that's usually how it works. So again, it's just, so I'm just saying that it's almost like how I said with swimming. Everybody just has a different definition of the word. Nobody is going to make me believe that. To me, my definition of swimming is, and this happened to one of my peoples. They was on vacation. Their boat leaving a cruise ship flipped over in the middle of the ocean. And people are out. People didn't have their life vest on. And he told them, don't worry about me. Save my wife.
Oh,
I gotta find my wife. Yeah, I know. I already know the whole concept. We about to go left right here. So let me finish my part before Beezo get in here. Let me finish my part.
Come on in here, Beezo.
Hold tight, Beezo. Just hold tight. Let me finish my story. So my man said, don't worry about helping me. I can swim. Save the people who can't swim. See, that's my definition of a person who can swim. This nigga's in the middle of the fucking Pacific Ocean.
All right, so what's the connection?
The connection is that your definition of musician is just different than mine.
I know. I use your definition. I use your exact definition.
That you can play an instrument?
Here you go.
Ev.
Here you go.
Ev. We already know.
Look.
I don't know how to say this any easier. Beezo, let me just bring you in so that you're up to date. Me and I was talking the other day. I said, I don't believe hip hop producers are musicians.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
We're something, but we're not musicians. And that's coming from me having, my mother is a jazz artist. I grew up around rehearsals. That's my definition. I have an old head definition of musicians. And that's just what it is.
Let me ask you this. So with a stringed instrument, there's chords. With drums, there's not chords. So if the guitarist or the pianist is looking at the drummer like, you don't even fucking count, money. You're just keeping time. Is he in the drummer? But I'm a musician. Like, what's his argument? Like,
no, let me explain something to you. He can play the drums. I can't.
But you can play the MP. You know how to put stuff in.
You can play drums on the MP.
And use effects on the MP.
That's not drums you laying down? What you laying down there if it's not drums?
I'm laying down. Let me explain something to you again. And maybe I'm saying this wrong. And trust me, like I said, Ed, and you know, I'm infamous for saying things the wrong way. I can't reiterate. I've been married 14 years. Trust me, I know I say things the wrong way. Before there was electronic instruments, right? Because that's what you're calling them. So I'm gonna go with you. Electronic instruments, right? Who was a musician? Now I know what you're saying that because what your argument is technology has changed. So now we need to open up the doors of what the old definition used to be to welcome in new people, right? That's what you're saying, right?
Actually, I don't even have to say that because, hey Vic, can you read that definition for me one more time? Because that definition works perfect, even for right now. But what I'm saying right now, that definition that Vic just read, whenever they wrote that, it still works perfect for today.
Yeah, and right, you're right. It works for you. It doesn't work in my favor. Because he said, whenever somebody, I guess if I take a pen and start hitting my hard drive with a rhythm, I'm a musician. According to the definition that Vic read, right?
It said a device.
Oh, a device. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought it just said anything that could make. I saw the Roots on Jimmy Fallon, and they had just little dumb stuff singing a song, just banging.
Eddie Harris did that. You got a lot of jazz musicians, man. What's the boy? He had the 3 joints hooked up together. You had my man Rufus Harley. He used the bagpipe and bebop jazz. Eddie Harris rolling saxophone. I mean, and then the argument earlier, if you read that book, Kind of Blue, Miles Davis, and I hate saying this because this is my man, but he, to use lack of terms, sucked on the trumpet. He just knew how to put the right people together. You know what I mean? And that's where a lot of that came from. Quincy Jones said it. He was like, yo, I couldn't play like these cats, so I went to learn to write music and put it together and compose it. So, I mean, that's pretty much you doing that with the MP. I mean, it doesn't...
Again, like I said, I believe, and this is just me, I believe hip-hop producers, we're something. We're just not musicians in my eyes.
Can I chime in on this?
Yeah, please do. Because I'm sure you with them. I'm getting jumped at going out here after school.
I have to agree with Ev and Vic. I mean, it's an instrument. Just because it's a newer age instrument, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't have the backstory, the origin of the tuba, the trombone, the trumpet, the horn, you know, this, that, the violin. It doesn't make it any less an instrument. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and this is different because you put the sounds into it, so you technically are playing multiple instruments when you're playing the MP, let's say. I'm not a keyboard player, but I can lay a bass line, I can lay some chords, I can lay a melody, but all of that comes from, you know, my experience of doing hip-hop production, you know what I mean? And if you're doing production of any sort, you have some level of understanding of music and timing and tempo and all this and that. I mean, between that and making an instrument, a device, create music, if those two things don't make you a musician, then, I mean, what else could you do?
And let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this.
Wait, let me throw something in.
Go ahead, Ev.
No, go ahead. My bad. Go ahead.
For all the old head jazz musicians, why do you think they don't like hip hop producers? Or why do you think?
Because Cash
they was making $525 a month.
But look, and this is my. I mean, we can say this because Cass is sampling. But however, I'm saying
hold tight. So that's the answer. So y'all believe that old head musicians don't like hip hop producers?
Well, I think from my experience, I mean, again, and I had a chance to talk to Donald Byrd about this shit. Donald Byrd, you know, he's a famous jazz musician, and he respected the art form because he acknowledged literally that, yo, you're still making music, even if you're taking a sample of this from that and all this and that and making one song out of it. He said it's like it's no difference between that and, he said, you don't think for a minute that when you're writing a song, whether it's pop, rock, jazz, whatever, that you're not taking melodies and notes and things that have already been used. So technically, you're sampling some of what someone else has already done anyway, because your creative inspiration, whatever you want to call it, like some guy might sound like Stevie Wonder, this dude might sound like Prince. They're getting their musical inspiration from someone else. So are they technically sampling, you know, Prince or Stevie Wonder if the way they vocalize, the way they perform is similar to them? In some ways, yes, it's still a form of sampling, but I mean, I think part of why the jazz cats don't respect it is it's the struggle. They look at their struggle in terms of, especially young black artists.
And keep in mind, it's just not jazz. It's just not jazz artists. It's musicians across the board. Like
I mean, you specifically said jazz though.
I'm sorry. Okay.
But I mean, again, talking to other, I mean, like I said, I mean, I'm sure you've done it yourself. When you're making a beat, it's not like you just taking. You're not doing a puffy shit. You're not just taking the instrumental and throwing a loop drums over this shit. That's like mixing. That's like DJing. If you're taking a sample, and then you taking this part of the sample and that part, you creating the hook, the intro, the verse, the this, the that, the outro, and you laying a bass line. You might lay some keys underneath it or whatever. That's musicianship.
But let me ask you this.
Can I throw my question in real fast?
Yeah.
So my question is this. Before there was a violin, before there was a guitar, before there was a horn, before all of these crafted instruments came together that man crafted at some point, at some time, the same way they crafted this thing right here, there was no musicians? So the musicians didn't exist. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I'm sure at one time and point they did exist. Guess what? Construction workers didn't exist at one time and point. Doctors didn't exist at one time and point. So yeah, there was a time when there was no.
This is a chicken and an egg argument right here.
Chicken and egg thing. Yeah, so you're saying before the musicians there was no before the instruments there was no music because there was no musicians. Can you really make that statement?
I mean, I wasn't there in the tribes in Africa, the lost tribes.
But look, we didn't gotta go
I think the storytellers. The cats that's banging on the drums, those are the musicians.
You just said the drums. There are no drums. So who was banging on the who's banging on the tree?
Whoa. The term drums may not have existed. We know it today. But the idea of taking anything, you could take a stick from outside and start banging it on something, it's gonna make a sound. So for you to take that sound and make that sound with a number of other sounds into a song.
So at the end of the day, what you're saying. So Naomi's a musician. Because Naomi will come in here and start beating on the thing, and guess what? Because I'm her pop, she got rhythm, so Nay's a musician, right?
In some respects and levels, yeah. I mean,
cool.
You may not be creating songs, but on some levels,
no, everybody's a musician. I feel like Skippy.
Everybody has within them, yes.
Let's invite every motherfucking body.
You gotta remember
the paper. Everybody a musician.
You gotta remember the whole time out. Let's keep things in perspective. The whole. Like Ed was saying, you going back to the origins of the instruments. So that's like saying that then before the tuba was created and nobody knows what the origin of the tuba was. They don't know where that shit came from. So before it existed, if you were making a sound with your hands, with your mouth, to create melodies and music, you're not a musician because you don't have an instrument?
No, I mean, then I guess what y'all are saying is everybody is a musician.
No, that's not what we necessarily saying.
It has to be, because guess what? I went to Naomi's first grade little concert thing. Guess what all the kids were doing? They were stomping in unison, boom, boom, clapping in unison, boom, 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 boom. Yeah. I guess her fucking first grade class of musicians.
I'm just saying if you can
music, but it was the intent.
It was the intent.
It was the intent of.
So they're musicians, right?
I would say yes.
Okay, cool. So
they made music.
Well, then, like I said, we all musicians did.
Hold on, kid. But hold on. See, you can't make such a blanket statement because.
Why not? My daughter's first grade.
Because this is why. And I made the point about it being just a sound, and that the sounds. What's that old saying of if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, does it make a sound? Yeah, it makes a sound. Just because you can't hear it doesn't mean it doesn't make a sound.
Right.
Just because this instrument, this MP, doesn't have sounds internally, I put the sounds into it and then I take those sounds back out and put them into a music form in terms of time and the tempo. That is a form of musicianship. Not everybody can do that. And what your daughter and her classmates did, they were taught in part of a performance that to create music
she was taught that the same way someone was taught how to play the piano. So like y'all said, like Vic said, Naomi's first grade class are musicians.
I
don't see what the problem with that is.
I don't think there's a problem with. I'm just saying then everybody, because these 32 kids, some of them don't have rhythm. I'll just be honest.
No, I'll add in there.
They're musicians.
If your part of your life is creating music, however you create music, then yes, you are. If Naomi in her class, if that's a part of their thing, not that they're just doing it for performance, but they're creating music, that's what they're doing year in, year out, yes, they are musicians.
Yes. So what about like a street performer? What about the cat on the A train that has a straight up? Got two sticks. Yeah, they drummer sticks, but they got two sticks and a bucket, and they banging and making a melody. And it's freedom.
I don't think y'all are gonna sway me. So y'all definition.
Oh, wait, so that's not a form. That's not a form of musicianship. That's not.
According to y'all, it is. It's not to me. Because now, according to you, we can stop this argument. Y'all saying a first grade class of musicians. We might as well jump to another subject.